So you've been following and contributing to the area of crowdfunding since its inception. Can you tell us a little bit about the basics of the industry, as well as major changes you've seen as the industry has evolved?
Well, it's been a very busy 4 years. So I got pulled into the startup group that basically wrote the legislation in the Jobs Act. Our founders are a group of about a dozen professionals from various walks, including securities, law, entrepreneurs, insurance agents, you name it. Most every profession is touched by crowdfunding now, and we've seen an incredible amount of growth despite the lag time it took for the SEC to implement the rules that the Jobs Act legislation provided. So during the time that we started, it was really more of an effort as a nonprofit group, more of a watchdog of Congress to make sure that the intent of the Jobs Act was reflected in the rules of the SEC and FINRA, both governing bodies of securities industry in the United States. And so it's been a little bit back channel, a little bit behind the scenes for the last couple of years, but ever since last May when we finally had what we call the Title III legislation rules formally set by the SEC, which allow for regular people to invest in equity and startup companies. That happened in May, and so we're coming up on our first anniversary of equity crowdfunding for the masses, which was really the intent that I think most people were looking at crowdfunding to bring. The successes that we've seen in crowdfunding, most people, when I ask in large audiences and small alike, as I say, who's familiar with crowdfunding, show of hands, very few hands go up, even still. But when I say who knows Kickstarter, every hand goes up. So Kickstarter is the most visible platform in crowdfunding, and it generally appeals to entrepreneurs who either haven't been entrepreneurs before or people transitioning from one industry to another. And it provides them with kind of a platform to talk about their investment without having to go door to door, if you will, to friends and family. If they don't have a rich uncle, it's a good place to talk about it. But some of the statistics that I'll share with you are pretty illuminating as to what Kickstarter as a platform actually provides in support for campaigns like the one that Tom did. And typically less than 7% of persons that invest or pledge money toward a campaign, whether it's for rewards or otherwise, 7% come from people just trolling Kickstarter looking for something to buy. 93% are friends and family, friends of friends, networks, people in the affinity sectors that relate to that product or service. So it really is not build it and they'll come. It's a very disciplined process, as I'm sure Chris and Tom will tell you. It is incredibly intense. It is 24/7. It is every bit of the energy you've got to give, and then some. And that's only to get their money. Then you have to deliver the product. And as Tom will testimony here, that is only just beginning for him. So good luck to you. Yeah. So there's a lot to it. The crowdfunding industry itself, worldwide, is seeing incredible growth, particularly in England, where they actually have worked into their very tax fabric the opportunity for investors to put money into startups. They get 50% of whatever they invest, they can take right off the top of their taxable income. So it is a massive benefit. We're starting to see some suggestions in the U.S. To similar results. We've actually petitioned the SEC with a letter this spring, which identifies that particular experience in England as a good example of what we have to do to really encourage the type of commitment to this new sector of capital. And when I say new sector of capital formation, I mean typically for entrepreneurs like me, I had my first idea when I was 9 years old. If I had the resources that we have here now, then I don't think I'd be here today. So really, I pledge all of my students, take advantage of it as much as you can, because it's getting to the point where in a few years people are going to ask, you mean crowdfunding hasn't always been the first stop on an entrepreneurial journey? And I think that ubiquity is what we're really seeking. But it's not by any means solidified. I actually take not offense, but I take note with the word expert when it comes to crowdfunding. It's a very new space, and while some of us are very committed, some of us are very passionate, the word expert is a hard one to use, and so I caution and hesitate. I never introduce myself as an expert in crowdfunding, despite having been there pretty much since day one, because it is a constantly evolving business, a constantly evolving industry where best practices have not even been illuminated yet. We're just now beginning to collect data and statistics on a fairly broad basis, enough to show that there are perhaps some patterns to what is required to have a successful campaign. I think Tom and Chris will have much more experience to talk to on those particular details, as they're intimately in it more than I am. I've only done one crowdfunding campaign myself, and it failed. So that should tell you even the brightest guy in the room, and I'm not him, even the brightest guy in the room has failures. Just like entrepreneurs, if you've started a business, and I'll give you one beautiful example. Before I came to UT, I was networking up in Ann Arbor, and I had spent 20 years in California as a startup entrepreneur, and some successes, some failures, and I'm sitting up in Ann Arbor at Innovations, and Steve Blank, who is kind of the godfather of the lean movement in our space, was there speaking, and I got a great chance to talk with him. First thing he did as soon as everybody was assembled, he says, okay, so let's see who we've got in the room. Who's an entrepreneur? Every hand in the room goes up. Fantastic. Who's a serial entrepreneur? Who's had more than one startup and they're coming at it again? A bunch of hands stay up. Fantastic. So of the ones that have had multiple startups, who's just batting 1,000? Who hasn't had a failure yet? And 3 hands stay up. And he goes, right, you can leave. And it absolutely freaked the whole room out. Everybody just got all quiet. I'm like, are you serious? He goes, no, of course you can stay. But 2 things. Either you're lying or I'm not going to invest in you. Either way, you're not getting my money today, because if you haven't failed yet, you're going to fail next, probably, and I don't want to touch it. So the honest truth of it is, we all have failed. If you've ever been an entrepreneur, more than one idea, if you've never had a failure, you're really rare. And I don't know anyone who's ever said they haven't. So failure is actually kind of the new norm in entrepreneurship. If you haven't, you're not part of the club, and you really want to be part of that club, because that's honesty and vulnerability at the same time. So these are themes.
Thank you. And we're fairly risk intolerant in the Midwest, which is something we're all trying to change. So on the coast, they celebrate failure because you learn from it. So actually, I don't even think I told you this yet. Chris and I talked about it a little. One of the things I wanted to make sure these guys talked about was their failures too, because there's so much to learn. And I think we just as individuals want to talk about our success a lot, but that can be intimidating. So thank you for that, Scott.
One thing about failure too, the process that was laid down here, partly with my experience here, and then my follow-on with Molly Thompson, and then continued on with Jessica, is this lean process, right? This is a process that utilizes the canvas standing behind Jordan, and it is designed specifically to allow you to make little incremental mistakes and then pivot based on the feedback that you get from people that you trust to give you honest answers. So it actually accelerates your path to a successful startup without taking the risk of other people's money in the process. So it's a truly valuable technology, the lean process.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so Tom, here it is. As we talked about earlier, you recently had a successful Kickstarter campaign. Can you tell us about your experience, including what made you decide to launch a campaign, what you did well, and what you failed at, what lessons you learned?
Is it okay if we play a video?
Yeah, absolutely.
We are the tool masters, the tinkerers, the mechanics, and the craftsmen. We are the people who work with our hands, fixing, building, and creating. We know that detail matters. Every second of productivity counts. Revolutionize the way you work with a grip mat. Streamline your workflow and get the job done.
Hey Kickstarter, I'm Tom. I'm an F-16 mechanic in the Air Force, and I was tired of my tools sliding off the aircraft. So I set out to create a product that would keep everything you need to do your job at your fingertips.
So after 2.5 years of prototyping in my basement, I came up with the Grip Mat, a flexible, non-slip tool tray with the ability to hold tools at extreme angles for a variety of work surfaces.
We launched the product 4 months ago at the world's largest air show and sold out of the original Grip Mat within the first week. The customers not only love the product, but they reinforce our decision into going into other markets and expanding our product line. So I got to work and designed 3 new grip mats, a large, medium, and small. We are excited to launch these 3 products to the Kickstarter community.
Never chase a runaway screw again. The small grip mat is comprised of 6 compartments that will keep your hardware organized and within arm's reach. The medium is designed to help keep your hand tools together in close proximity, such as under the hood or on top of a ladder. The large is designed for more involved jobs, where a handful of tools just won't cut it.
At Gription Industries, we believe that simplicity is key.
Our grip mats are comprised of our unique formula, specially designed to provide high-end friction and chemical resistance.
Thank you for watching our video, and please help us make this a reality by supporting our campaign and sharing our story.
Well done.
So yeah, I'm an F-16 mechanic, like I said. What happened was, tired of my tools sliding off, saw in my mom's car she had a non-slip mat to keep herself in place when driving. So I decided that this is something that we could do. Scott was actually the first person I ever met business-wise who was in the Launchpad incubator. So yeah, this was like my Launchpad. No. But anyway, so with the Kickstarter, a big success was working with a company called Funded Today, which is a marketing firm that specializes within crowdfunding. So what they do is they'll have a venting system that you'll pay a couple $1,000s, and then they'll take that money. Well, first you send an application. If you get accepted, then you have the venting system that they'll take a couple $1,000s and put it towards ads. And if they see these ads as being profitable, then they'll put their own money into the ads, and then anything that they bring in, they'll take a percentage of. So if you get accepted to this program, basically you get a lot of marketing that you don't have to upfront the cash for. So if they are successful, then they'll pay for it. The only thing is it's a couple $1,000s risk. A couple issues with the Kickstarter. So the video doesn't really describe it very well, but the first product was the Grip Mat Original. And then I added 3 more products, a small, medium, large, where I have a very lean, efficient system for distribution and sales of the Grip Mat Original, where Kickstarter honestly is not a very good business model. It's very, I was impressed on how bad it was, to be honest. So my system is, I have Shopify linked with the warehouse fulfillment center. So whenever there's an online order, where I have the product stored, they get the notification and they just ship it. I never see the product. I don't deal with it. It saves me a lot of time. Whereas for Kickstarter, a shocker is that right now I have like 1,500 backers. I don't have anyone's address. So I am supposed to send out a survey asking them for their address. Now, it sounds pretty crazy. Part of the reasoning is that typically when people have a Kickstarter and they actually deliver the product, could easily be 6 months. So you could be moving, could be sending it to the wrong address. Now on their end, they're kind of saying, well, as a Kickstarter campaign runner, I have their money, so they want to respond and give me their feedback. To me, it's very unorganized and chaotic. So right now, what Kickstarter will do is they'll give me a spreadsheet of people who ordered and how much they ordered. They won't tell me what they ordered. For example, there's what's called the early bird. We're trying to get people to put in early. So the small was $25. Normal price is $30. So the trio pack is $100, one of each size. So the thing is, you have different tiers. So let's say you clicked on the trio pack, or I'm sorry, let's say you clicked on the small one, and let's say you want 5. You can't select 5. You have to put in $125 worth. So you type that in, $125 worth. Now the thing is, I don't know if you want 5 smalls or if you want a small and a trio pack. So because Kickstarter only tells me that you selected small and you put in $125 worth. So the thing is, honestly, if I were to do another Kickstarter, the only way would be if I had one product, no options. And on top of that, what was the other thing? Yeah, one product, no, oh yeah, the other thing is the demographic of Kickstarter is extremely specific. If I would know what I know now, and I never came up with the Grip Mat, and someone were to come up to me and say, hey, I got this idea, I probably would tell them it's going to be no. I probably don't know. It's going to be a really hard road, because the specific demographic of Kickstarter is millennials, anything to do with cell phones and laptops. That'll do very well. I'll have people come up to me and say, hey, one girl had a dating app idea. No way would I do that. She started it, and I told her, I was like, the only thing you can do, try to be accepted by Funded Today. If you do, go for it. If not, I would shut it down. And then there's a guy, when I was driving, he called me. He has an idea for painters. And I told him Kickstarter's not it.
right demographic.
Not the demographic,
Thank you.
so-
Scott,
If I can interject on Kickstarter, so how many of you remember a company called Netscape?
Yeah.
How many remember what happened to Netscape? Right? Colossal loss of opportunity because first to market sometimes is not the best place to be, especially in technology. Kickstarter in our network, right, in the crowdfunding community insiders, we all know we put on hundreds of events a year across the country, across the world. Every business person that really wants to contribute is there. Kickstarter never shows up, never answers emails, never contributes to the community whatsoever. This is in high contrast to the nature of the fact that they just listed their company as a benefit corporation, which is entirely contrasting against the actual type of support they give. They're really just a money machine. They just collect money nonstop and have no interest in consumer response or interaction whatsoever. So it's.
Would you suggest another platform?
I would suggest any platform. I would suggest creating your own platform or working with a nonprofit that has a platform. There are hundreds of thousands, and I'm not joking, platforms out there. And they're as simple as, going to a website and filling in some forms and you can have your own. Granted, this is for rewards and donation, it's not for equity. Anytime you enter into a securities agreement, you have a lot of other obstacles in the way and pre-qualifications, registrations, things of that nature that will be required. In addition to having a relationship with or being a broker-dealer yourself, which is an incredibly laborious and expensive process. So a lot of this stuff sounds exciting and sizzly on the outside, but as Tom described, Kickstarter is all about shiny objects, and I think we know what those are. So.
Well, actually, so that's a good lead into our next question for Chris, which is, you had a successful Indiegogo campaign, right? So
Right.
tell us about that experience.
So in 2014, we launched an Indiegogo campaign for a product called Think Charger, and it's a charge unit that plugs into the wall, and it has interchangeable tips on top so you can plug any phone into it and just change the tip out. And then on the bottom, there's 2 USB ports. I should have brought one with me.
I think most of us probably seen it.
But yeah, it was all over. So, well, on the Indiegogo campaign, we raised $700,000, and then that won us some award. We went out, or not we, Seymour Segment was the inventor, and so he won a 2-week vacation on Richard Branson's island with a bunch of other crowdfunders, and that was pretty cool exposure and everything. I didn't get to go. No, that sucks. There's a lot of cool things that happened with Think Charger that I should have been able to benefit from, but mistakes. I like how we started this talking about, as entrepreneurs, we make a lot of mistakes because we raised these $700,000, won this award, had all this exposure, but similar issues. That wasn't enough money to actually get the product up, made, and shipped to all the people that had supported the campaign. So they're kind of stuck
But
between.
could you have charged more? Would that have been a way to negate that? Or?
I mean, yeah, but at that point, we were charging $40 for a charger.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
But there's a lot of logistics going into having a charger made, like the testing, and we had to be UL certified. So that whole process was months and months. So our delivery dates just kept getting pushed back, further back, because of all these other processes that we had to go through. So at any rate, the $700,000 wasn't nearly enough. So we had to figure out a new way to raise this money. And when the campaign was over, we were looking at the amount of money the checks we were writing to Indiegogo, and to all those things that you have to pay for along the way, and it's like, this is just not profitable. So we went on our own website, we checked with a bunch of lawyers, got the okay to do this from them, launched on our own website, used the same video, referenced the Indiegogo campaign, which was still actively running, which at that point, Seymour had formed a pretty good relationship with the CEO of Indiegogo. So at the time, they weren't allowing campaigns to go be ongoing. We were like one of the 3 first ones to do that. So that was kind of a cool thing, because we felt that protected us from doing it on our website.
You can do that now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then one thing with Indiegogo, or one thing with Kickstarter, you have to be the first ever to sell anywhere. Where Indiegogo, they're more flexible, that kind of stuff.
Right. So
Tom, can you just repeat that a little bit louder?
Yeah, so with Kickstarter, anything that's that you put on there, it has to be the very first time, original time that it's been sold or taken into pre-orders. So with Indiegogo now, they're a lot more flexible with that, where like right now my product's on in demand, which is raised successfully on Kickstarter, and then you can put it on in demand. So while you're waiting for your product to arrive, you can keep taking orders. So the thing is, Indiegogo is kind of like the little brother to Kickstarter, so they're willing to work with you doing a little more innovative things. The thing is, Indiegogo is not as popular as Kickstarter, where like Kickstarter was 25% of their funds, which all that's tracked.
This is kind of an area that you see the leads to market, right? Kickstarter has the brand name recognition, and that's really good. They're obviously taking advantage of that. We will see them displaced. It won't be long before we've got things spread out, and it won't be long before some of the others are capitalized by bigger corporations that want a chunk of that revenue. So we're kind of seeing a difference between a first product to market, which is what Tom's describing with Kickstarter, and then a marketplace for entrepreneurial projects, which is really more where Kickstarter is going. We're going to see a lot more of those emerge, and hopefully, and frankly, one of my most inspiring areas is to see what we see in the world of secondary markets for equity offerings. The minute that you have the opportunity as a non-accredited investor to really put money and get shares back from a small venture that you believe in, the minute that you get that share, that's all good and fine, but you might as well staple it to your wall because there's no market to sell it, right? You have to wait for that company to get acquired, you have to wait for that company to pay dividends. These things can take forever, and 90% of the time it will never happen. So there's a big risk there, but the minute we have a secondary market and you can start, trading incremental shares or small fee shares, all of a sudden people are going to be like, well, I don't want it now, or I need my money now, and then boom, creates a marketplace. That's very exciting because it gives us the capital to actually fuel our business as opposed to just the one-time out. So it's frustrating.
Thank you. Okay, so Scott, back to you. Who should launch a crowdfunding campaign? So I know, Tom, you hit on this a little, so thank you. So if you feel like you could add that, and then how do you know if you're ready, your business is ready, if you're at the right point?
Both good questions. So who is best for a crowdfunding campaign? Really, those kind of get back to the metrics of your what we call social capital. Okay, some of you might be familiar with the term. How many friends do you have following you on Facebook? How many people are following your Twitter feed? How much do you have out there that points back to you as an individual or to your company or a product? That's really critical, and I'm sure there's going to be some great metrics that you'll be able to subscribe to find exactly what those numbers need to be before you even consider doing a campaign. I like to say, think of it like, I don't know how many people as old as me in the room, but there was a commercial back in the 70s for a shampoo called Prel, and they had a beautiful graphic that showed one person died, and then two, and then it just multiplies exponentially until you see a bunch of little tiny pictures of people smiling because their shampoo hair looks good. Same thing is true here. You have to be able to reach 200 people, and not only that, but you have to have a message so compelling that those 200 people are going to talk to their 200 people, and so on. And of course, your follow-throughs are going to get diminished at each stage, but that's really the network effect taking effect.
So should you be, as far as how do you know if you're ready, so in that sense, when you're talking about how mature of a business you should be?
Well, a lot of times it's not a business at all, and that's really the second stage of crowdfunding, right? Crowdfunding is really a proof of concept stage more than anything right now. In fact, there's a lot of websites out there, and I like to remind people that crowdfunding is a subset of crowdsourcing. Crowdsourcing is, pooling together opinions from a large group of people electronically, and that's a fantastic and powerful tool. So what we've seen in the crowdfunding space is a move toward pre-sale, meaning, hey, I love your product, I want to be the first one on my block with your product, and I'm willing to pay you now on the hopes that I will be. That is a tremendous relationship, because not only does it tell you right off the bat, wow, I have a product that people really want, but man, I'm going to have to actually deliver this product sometime soon. So you get both a marketing credential and a commercial credential at the same time, which is very valuable. A lot of people now, and especially in the equities space, there's a new phrase called test the waters. This is actually written into the Regulation A, which allows you to raise between $20 and $50 million through the crowd. But you test the waters first. So you put out a feeler, if you will, a proposition saying, if I did this, how much or how likely would you be willing to invest? Once you get back those numbers, then the advisors of the platform or your consultants would tell you, now you're ready. But honestly, a lot of it is about forecasting a little bit beyond the success of your crowdfunding campaign, because I think the statistics are about 17% of crowdfunding campaigns actually deliver their intended goal. So it's pretty thin. Your chances of success are pretty thin. A typical crowdfunding round is less than $5,000 for a fundraise, which is pretty small. Anybody that started a business knows you can't begin to start a business for $5,000. Most people would say 20,000 is the first number that you really want to look at. And if you have anything that needs legal support, my colleague Mark can answer that. 50,000 is probably a good place to start. And that's kind of where we get out of the friends and family money and into institutional or bank or leverage debt, all kinds of these things. So it gets a bit sticky. But when you're ready for a crowdfunding campaign, it's my advice you need to look a bit further down the road and say, if I'm successful, what do I do then? And granted, some of these guidances are included in platforms like Indiegogo and others, where they'll prepare you for that eventuality. But a lot of times that information is buried, and it really requires people like Chris who've been through it and understand the implications of taking someone else's money.
Well, thank you guys. Actually, the reason I wanted to do this is because these are the things that unless you've gone through it, you just don't know. So that's really important. So Tom, you touched on this a little bit already, but if you could just take us through the steps that you took to prepare. So you could once again say, what was the company that you reached out to again? I want to make sure people can write that down if they want to look it up.
Funded Today.
Funded Today?
Yeah.
Okay.
So a massive benefit for me was I was working with, his name is Lucas Williamson, which Chris met. He's done like 3 or 4, this might be number 4 campaign. So he knows, the basics, the ropes, he knows a lot. So he had like press lined up, hardware tool industry, and took the top ones and just kind of basically copied them, see what they did, see what worked, and then our page was pretty similar. So honestly, I feel like Lucas and I built like the template for Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaigns, where it's just like, video. Right after that, they want to see some prototyping things. They want to see, some iconography, things like that. And if you look at the Indiegogo Kickstarter page, you'll see what I'm talking about. And so one thing that Scott said of, your network, how big's your network? One thing that I did to help grow that, on LinkedIn, you can basically rip all your contacts into an Excel spreadsheet of first name, last name, email, where they work, and their title. So on LinkedIn, I just add everybody. I don't care who you are, I add everybody. And then on Mail Merge, you can send a personalized email saying, hello, first name, and then be like, hello, Chris, I'd like to show you my Kickstarter campaign, blah, blah, blah. And then, hello, Lisa, or whatever your name is, just as long as you have an Excel spreadsheet. And I noticed the open rate is way higher than that, or is way higher with that than just saying, hey there, like using their first name helps out a ton.
If I can interject really quickly, this is a theme that I've been pushing for the last 4 years. This is a world that we live in, right? You're constantly assaulted with spam, constantly assaulted with unsolicited inquiries. And you know it the minute you see, you don't even have to look at the subject and you know it's garbage, right? Sincerity is one thing that I tell kids you have to. I tell students, I tell clients, all of it. If it's not sincere, if it doesn't absolutely say this is a real message from a real person, you have 0 chance of success. So even a trick like the mail merge that you said is good, it's a start, but you better make sure your copy sounds like you sound. Otherwise, they're going to sniff it out in 10 seconds and you're gone. So sincerity is really, really critical. And
That's the whole reason I came up with the name of my company is Cultivated Online. It's about, building relationships naturally through organic, conversation and things.
And this is one reason why you see a common theme in crowdfunding campaign pages. A video is a must because that's a real person talking real stuff in front of you. And granted, Tom's video is outstanding. It's one of the best I've seen. That's a broadcast quality commercial is what it is. You don't often see that, so that's rare. And that can also be quite expensive if you don't have someone doing you favors.
But I think it lends to the quality of your brand though, right? So it's believable. Oh, this person's there,
Oh, it's
right?
a real product.
I want to get in, yeah.
Yeah, so prototype is critical. We do the same thing with our students here at the university. I've done 4 years now of freshman engineers going through a process similar to what she does with her clients here, and the results have been incredible. It has to be sincere, it has to be personal, it has to be a real tangible thing. And that's where testimonials and videos really come in handy. So if you're going down that road, plan for that time and plan for that budget. Don't skip on script writing.
That's perfect. And actually that, you guys are helping me. I thought I didn't be up here because that was the next question, our final question. So we're just gonna, one last question. You guys already touched on this, then we'll open it up for audience questions. So Chris, as a digital marketing professional, can you tell us about some of the most important aspects of a crowdfunding campaign as it relates to digital media, which is exactly what we were just talking about. So
Right.
is there anything, from your background, because you are an expert in this field, that you think that these people should know?
Well, that, we just hit on it. Video is
Okay.
key. You've got to communicate that message, and you've got to be authentic in that message. So whatever that looks like for you and your business, it varies, depending on what you're doing. Product, like obviously GripMat's a product, but it wasn't as much about the product as much as it was about Tom and his background and how the idea came about. But also understanding that your audience in your crowdfunding campaign is going to be a different audience than your general public. And I think that's a key differentiator when you go out into you start with your crowdfunding campaign in order to take it to the next level, right? And that's what we did with Think Chargers. We wanted to take it onto our own website, not have to pay somebody, and then make an actual business out of the campaign. And so we looked at our website. How do we make our website convertible? Higher conversion rates and things like that. And we started putting our energy into those kinds of things. So it's just thinking about laying the tracks for what's next. Like, okay, if this is our goal in our crowdfunding campaign, what is our goal after the campaign's over? What are we trying to accomplish? Are we funding, like in GripMat's situation, are we funding a big pre-order, a larger order, so that now we can fulfill that crowdfunding campaign and then also be in retail and things like that. Does that make sense?
So I think a good segue from that, if I may, take a second to plug your fine institution here.
Yes, please.
One of the things that I found when I first came to the University of Toledo as a client of UTI, which was next door, the former name for the incubator, was a real disconnect between what's happening inside the university, what's happening in the city, what resources are available to all entrepreneurs. And it was my ambition, it was my mission to tie those together and start bringing a focus to the university, which, as most people know, is a tax-paid institution, is assumed to be an engine of economic development and stimulation. So I really wanted to put it to the test and involve students in that process as well. So that was my mission. So in that process, obviously, we now have the Office of Student Entrepreneurship and Engagement, which is my office. And we have media support now for our events, which is terrific. We're actually getting amazing little pieces. I can show you that, but you can just check this website later. But I originally created this diagram to illustrate the resources that are actually available in this district right now. Nobody before me had this picture, had this collection of assets represented in one image before. And now it's there, it's real, you can click it, look around it. But what it leads to is something even more important, which I think is critical for understanding where we're going as a community and why it's important. Everybody here participates in this. So this is my timeline over the next 9 months as an entrepreneur and as an administrator at the university, all ending in what I believe is an economic stimulation that a small city like Toledo has never seen. And I really believe that it's possible, and so I am going to passionately ask you all to stay engaged with Jessica and this organization, and please donate a little bit of your time if it's an hour per month. I can promise you that you will thank yourself, because my ambition is to have this device here, the mill, be an actual opportunity for people just like us to own a share in the incubator that actually builds new businesses, cottage industries, niche industries here in Toledo. You will have a share in all of them if you contribute your time alone, not even your money. So I'll get to those details later. This is not a pitch for me, but it's a pitch for what we're all assembling here together. And there's really great examples of it, even downtown with Gene Powell's C incubator. Much like this room, he provides space for entrepreneurs to come gather together and share success and talents. And we're seeing Startup Toledo with Keith Instone and Stuart Birch doing very much the same thing, all from the goodness of the heart, not getting paid. We all have a stake in the success of the region. Obviously, if we like it here. I lived in California 20 years. Everybody says, what in the world are you doing coming back here? I don't know. I still like to skate on ice, and I still love my family, so here I am.
Well, and I think Toledo has a lot of unique qualities that we all tend to forget about. So thank you, Scott, for that. And Scott will be available after to talk more about those kinds of things. So thank you for that support. So we don't have a ton of time for questions, so I want to make sure that we leave enough time to break out afterwards so you guys can meet the presenters. But we can take a couple, if there are any.
I don't know if you mentioned the new equity crowdfunding platforms. Do you have any recommendations for experimenting with those?
I do, of course, yeah. So when I started up at CFPA, I was recruited to join the founding executive council by a woman named Dara Albright, who is an incredible writer. If anybody's interested in fintech, financial technology, she is a de facto source of knowledge in that space. There's a number of people. If you go to cfpa.org, that's our organization, and it is, again, a nonprofit designed, as most trade groups are, to connect people to others, so networking. It's also a source for education and training, and eventually, as soon as we start to have transparency and data, we'll have best practices illustrated there as well. But as far as platforms, I can speak to my colleague Ryan Feit, who I shared the education training co-chair with on that committee. He has founded a company called Seed Invest. This is what we call a Title II platform, but they're now also offering Reg A, which is your higher end. So you can go anywhere from $1 million to $50 million through this platform, and it's very detailed, but they're also very selective, and you'll find that to be the case as we begin to amass a bunch of competitors in the platform space. They will begin to differentiate, and then after differentiation, we will start to see amalgamation, attrition, and eventually 3 will remain standing. And it certainly won't be the 3 that are standing right now. In my personal opinion, I think they're white elephants. They move slowly, and their services are becoming outdated already, as they described. So Seed Invest is a good, and there's a lot of others. Start Engine out in Los Angeles is another good resource to go. But if you'd like to contact me afterwards, I can do a long list.
Indiegogo does that, and then Fundable was one in Columbus.
Fundable.
Those are the 2 I know.
Fundable, yeah. Fundable is actually a great story because when I found Tom's campaign doing so well, I'm like, so where have you been? Who have you talked to? And Fundable came back around. I also have a colleague company from South America that wants to enter the U.S., and they brought up the fact that they were already discussing with Fundable. Fundable is an Ohio company based outside of Columbus. Very, very bright guys. Will and Chris were my contacts there. And they've grown it not just from a funding site, but into a real network of business growth enterprise. It's an incredible firm right here in the States.
Anybody else? Have a question? Okay.
A couple things that I wanted to talk about. Okay, so a few other hustling 101 things you can do. Anything that was like an article closely related to my demographic of people. For example, if there's an article about aircraft maintenance, I would go on that article, and anyone who would share the article or like it, I would just add them all directly to my Facebook. And I've had a really good return from that. Actually, on the way here, I was on the phone with a guy for like an hour who just said, yeah, I don't know how I found you. You just added me on Facebook, and now he's like helping me out in Oklahoma distribute the product. So with that, there's 2 major things you can do. 3. One, since they're your friend, anything that you post on your personal feed will show up on their feed. 3, you can directly invite them to like your page. And then the other, number 3.
We skipped 2.
Back to
We're
2.
fine.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, number 3 is throughout the campaign, like once a week, I would do Facebook Live, where all your friends would get a notification, which I got a ton of friends, in the aviation industry. I don't personally know them, but yeah. One downfall is your Facebook page will be wrecked. The thing is,
So it's no longer your personal page,
No.
it really becomes about business.
Yeah.
So that's a good distinction to make.
yeah. And then another thing.
Kind of goes back to that, it's a real voice that they want to relate to,
Yeah.
Yes,
right?
good point.
Yeah.
And if any entrepreneur in the room will testify, shameless self-promotion is not looked down upon when you're scrapping $100. It's just part of the deal. And again, that's sincerity. If you're honest about it, upfront about it, they don't think you're trying to sell them something. You're just being yourself, saying this is how it is. And you'll find a lot of mileage from that as well.
And then one other thing is, if you study Kickstarters or crowdfunding campaigns, what will happen is that they will, right when they launch, they'll go up and then they plateau really hard. What's happening is that they're exhausting their network. So it's plateauing because all their friends know, all their friends already bought, no one else really cares. So what my play was, honestly, $10,000 was not the goal. It was much higher than that. Honestly, our goal was to get $100,000. The play was, after we exhaust our networks, let Funded Today do their thing, and then I was just hunting for articles, hunting for press. So if I could get more press, an article could drop, we would get a lot of exposure from that, growing our network. So after like week 1, it was just hunting for press, and ended up getting like 24 articles, and that's kind of like a snowball effect. I was trying really hard to get like small communities. Spent a lot of time here, Columbus and Milwaukee, and like getting those, because the thing is, when you're talking to these big ones, Forbes or something like that, they want to see other articles that you have. You can't just skip to the top. You got to win the city before you can win the country. So, that's something that
It kind of reflects a similar thing that Chris said in naming. Many of you are probably familiar with an online email distribution platform called Constant Contact. Really what it's about is constant contact, but it can't be trivial or just harassment. It's got to be something new. Hey, I got an article, and this is exciting for me. Maybe you'll share it with your friends who concern themselves.
So I guess this is sum up what you guys are saying, if I'm hearing it correctly, is that the digital media and making sure your brand is strong and that people are talking about constantly is absolutely essential to a successful crowdfunding campaign. Okay.
As far as digital media, it can also be said that this incubator has a digital media studio, so you can
Yes.
actually do your video right here, including green screen. If you want to be floating in space, you can do that.
Yeah, green screen, the best software there is, and people here who know how to help you use it. So thank you, guys.
Pleasure.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming, and thank you for our